The Galactic Union's most elite strike force, the Vorthon Death Guard, materialized on the forest floor of Kepler 442b with the characteristic blue shimmer of quantum teleportation. Their advanced combat suits hummed with energy shields, neural targeting systems, and weapons that could vaporize a building with a single pulse. Squad leader Zethkar flexed his four arms, each gripping a different instrument of destruction as his compound eyes scanned the dense woodland through multiple spectrums of light. "Target acquired," announced Tactical Officer Velnara, her serpentine form coiled around a hover platform bristling with sensors. Human designated as Sarah Chen detected approximately 2 kilometers northeast. Biosignatures indicate standard Terran physiology, no enhancements detected. Communications specialist Thexel, a crystalline being whose body refracted light in prismatic patterns, chimed with electronic laughter. One primitive human against the 6 finest warriors in the galaxy? This assignment insults our capabilities. Command considers this human dangerous, Zethkar replied, though his tone carried skepticism. She has allegedly eliminated 47 bounty hunters in the past 3 months. However, I suspect these were merely incompetent amateurs seeking easy credits. Heavy weapons specialist Bromgath, a towering creature resembling Livingstone, hefted his fusion cannon with casual ease. Dangerous? With what? Intelligence reports suggest she carries only chemical projectile weapons. Such primitive technology became obsolete 3 centuries ago. Demolitions expert Kithara, whose insectoid form skittered between the trees with unnatural speed, clicked her mandibles in amusement. Chemical projectiles cannot penetrate our shields. Energy weapons cannot harm our armor. What threat could one isolated human possibly present? Stealth operative Nixoff, barely visible even to his squad mates due to his adaptive camouflage, spoke from somewhere among the shadows. Perhaps the threat lies not in her weapons, but in human unpredictability. Their species displays remarkable creativity in survival situations. Creativity cannot overcome technological superiority, Zethkar declared. We possess weapons capable of obliterating entire city blocks, armor that has withstood direct hits from antimatter charges, and tactical systems that can predict enemy movements with 97% accuracy. One human with chemical weapons poses no legitimate threat. The squad advanced through the alien forest with practiced coordination. Ancient trees towered above them, their purple bark and silver leaves creating an otherworldly canopy that filtered the orange light of Kepler's twin suns. Bioluminescent fungi dotted the forest floor, pulsing with soft blue and green glows. The air carried unfamiliar scents of exotic flowers and decomposing plant matter unlike anything found on their respective homeworlds. Velnara continuously updated their tactical display with environmental data. Atmospheric composition optimal for all species present. Gravity registers at 1.2 standard units. No significant weather patterns detected. Terrain offers numerous concealment opportunities for both parties. As they moved deeper into the forest, Thexel intercepted and analyzed various electromagnetic signals. I am detecting multiple communication frequencies emanating from human settlements approximately 50 kilometers distant. Standard terraforming equipment operating at expected parameters. Nothing suggesting advanced military installations or hidden weapon systems. Confirmed, Bromgath added, scanning with his fusion cannon's targeting array. No energy signatures consistent with modern weapons detected within sensor range. No vehicles, no defensive installations, no support structures. The target appears genuinely isolated. Kithara paused beside a cluster of metallic flowers that chimed softly in the wind. These colonists have been here barely 5 years. How could they have developed anything capable of challenging Galactic Union technology in such a short time? They could not, Zethkar stated definitively. This Sarah Chen is likely some form of survivalist who has managed to eliminate untrained criminals through luck and local knowledge. Against professional soldiers equipped with the galaxy's finest technology, she has no chance whatsoever. Nixoth's voice emerged from a different location, demonstrating his rapid movement capabilities. I have located tracks consistent with human footwear, single individual moving in a systematic pattern that suggests patrol behavior rather than random wandering. The squad adjusted their formation, with Bromgath taking point due to his superior defensive capabilities. His fusion cannon swept methodically from side to side, its targeting computer analyzing every shadow and movement for potential threats. Velnara's sensors painted a three-dimensional map of their surroundings, marking every significant feature for tactical reference. Thermal imaging reveals no human signatures within immediate vicinity, Velnara reported. However, the dense vegetation and diverse wildlife create numerous false positives. Recommendation: advance to higher ground for improved sensor clarity. Agreed, Zethkar responded. Kithara, scout ahead and identify optimal observation positions. Thexel, monitor for any communication attempts from the target. She may try to contact the colonial authorities once she becomes aware of our presence. The forest seemed almost peaceful as they climbed toward a ridge overlooking the valley where their target had been detected. Alien birds with iridescent feathers called from the canopy, while small creatures rustled through the undergrowth. Nothing suggested imminent danger or any reason for particular caution. "This feels like a waste of resources," Bromgath commented, his heavy footsteps crushing fallen leaves and small branches. 6 elite operatives deployed against a single human equipped with obsolete weapons. We could have handled this assignment with our eyes closed. Kithara skittered up a massive tree trunk, her claws finding purchase on the purple bark. From her elevated position, she surveyed the terrain ahead. Ridgeline offers excellent fields of fire in all directions, multiple escape routes available should tactical withdrawal become necessary, though I cannot imagine circumstances requiring such action. None of us can, Zethel agreed. Human tactics typically rely on overwhelming numbers, industrial capacity, or technological innovation. This individual possesses none of these advantages. She has no support, no advanced equipment, and no means of calling for reinforcement. Nixoth materialized briefly beside a fallen log before vanishing again. Psychological warfare, perhaps. Humans sometimes attempt to intimidate opponents through reputation and mysterious circumstances. The elimination of 47 bounty hunters does create a certain psychological impact. Only among the weak-minded, Zethkar dismissed. We have faced entire armies and emerged victorious. The reputation of one human cannot affect warriors who have conquered star systems and toppled civilizations. As they reached the ridge, Velnara extended her sensory array to maximum range. The valley below spread out like a detailed map, showing streams, clearings, and dense patches of forest where their target might be concealing herself. Her instruments detected various forms of local wildlife, but no obvious human presence. "Interesting," she mused, studying her readings. "I am detecting traces of metal objects buried at various points throughout the valley. Composition suggests iron and steel, consistent with human chemical projectile weapons. However, the placement pattern appears deliberate rather than random." Thexel's crystalline body pulsed with rapid calculations. Deliberate placement suggests preparation for confrontation. However, chemical projectiles cannot penetrate our defenses regardless of positioning. The tactical advantage remains overwhelmingly in our favor. Bromgath tested his fusion cannon's charge levels and smiled with predatory satisfaction. "Let her prepare whatever traps she believes might help. When we locate her position, one shot from this weapon will end the engagement instantly. Chemical weapons cannot compare to fusion technology." The squad began their descent into the valley, confident in their superiority and eager to complete what they viewed as a routine assignment. Their advanced sensors continued mapping the terrain, Their weapons remained charged and ready, and their communication systems maintained perfect coordination between team members. None of them noticed the small figure watching from a concealed position nearly 800 meters away, or the glint of afternoon sunlight reflecting off the scope of a weapon that had been old when their civilizations were young. Sarah Chen adjusted the bipod legs of her grandfather's Springfield rifle, the worn wooden stock familiar against her cheek after 3 months of constant use. The weapon had been manufactured in 1943 during humanity's Second Global War and had traveled across galaxies in her family's possession for over 2 centuries. Its iron sights had been carefully maintained, its barrel properly cleaned, and its mechanism lovingly preserved through generations of careful ownership. Through the scope she had mounted years ago, Sarah watched the alien strike team move through the valley below with the arrogance of beings who had never faced a prepared enemy. They made noise, displayed bright energy signatures, and moved in formations that prioritized intimidation over tactical caution. Their technology was impressive, their weapons clearly devastating, but their behavior revealed fatal overconfidence. She had been expecting them for weeks. The bounty hunters who came before had grown increasingly sophisticated, forcing her to adapt and improve her techniques. Word of her success had apparently reached official channels, prompting this response from what appeared to be actual military forces rather than simple mercenaries seeking quick profits. The rifle held 8 rounds in its internal magazine, each one carefully hand-loaded with powder charges calculated for local atmospheric conditions. Sarah had spent considerable time learning the ballistic properties of her grandfather's weapon on this world, adjusting for the increased gravity and different air density. Every shot had to count, because reloading would take precious seconds she might not have. Her first target moved with the heavy confidence of someone accustomed to overwhelming firepower. The creature's fusion cannon could probably level a small building, but its massive size made it an obvious choice for initial elimination. Sarah calculated wind speed, distance, and the slight deviation caused by Kepler's dual-star gravitational effects before gently squeezing the trigger. The Springfield's report echoed across the valley like thunder, its chemical propellant creating a brief flash and cloud of smoke. 800 meters away, Bromgath suddenly staggered as something struck his fusion cannon with tremendous force, sending the massive weapon spinning from his grasp. The impact crater in the weapon's housing showed where a primitive metal projectile had somehow penetrated advanced defensive systems. "Impossible!" Zethkar shouted, his forearms immediately raising various weapons toward the ridgeline. "Chemical projectiles cannot breach our shields." "Contact from grid reference 77 Alpha," Velnara announced, her serpentine form coiling defensively as sensors tried to locate the source of the attack. "Single projectile. Metallic composition. Traveling at approximately 900 meters per second." Thexel's crystalline body flashed with rapid calculations. 900 meters per second is insufficient velocity to penetrate Union defensive technology. Our shields should have deflected such a primitive attack automatically. Sarah was already adjusting her position, the Springfield's bolt cycling smoothly as she chambered a second round. The aliens were reacting exactly as she had predicted, clustering together and focusing their attention on the wrong location. Their sensors would eventually pinpoint her actual position, but confusion bought her precious seconds. The second shot targeted the serpentine creature, whose sensors posed the greatest threat to her concealment. Sarah aimed for the hover platform's propulsion system rather than the alien herself, knowing that disabling their reconnaissance capability would create greater tactical confusion than simply eliminating one squad member. The bullet struck Velnara's platform dead center, causing exotic components to explode in showers of sparks and smoking fragments. The tactical officer crashed to the ground with an undignified shriek as her sophisticated equipment died around her, leaving the squad effectively blind to electronic surveillance. 2 shots, 2 critical system failures, Kithara chittered nervously. her insectoid form skittering between trees for cover. How is this human achieving such precision with obsolete technology? Luck, Bromgath growled. Retrieving his damaged fusion cannon and discovering its targeting computer had been completely destroyed. Random chance has temporarily favored our opponent, but chemical weapons remain inferior to modern technology. Sarah smiled grimly as she worked the bolt action again. The aliens still had not learned the most important lesson about chemical projectiles. When properly aimed, they did not need to penetrate shields to be effective. Targeting their equipment rather than their bodies was producing excellent results while conserving her limited ammunition. The third round flew toward Thexel, whose crystalline structure made him an excellent communications relay for the squad. Sarah had observed his body pulsing with electronic signals throughout their advance, suggesting he coordinated their tactical communications. Eliminating him would force them to rely on less efficient backup systems. The bullet shattered Thexel's left communication array in an explosion of prismatic fragments, immediately severing the squad's quantum-encrypted tactical link. The crystalline being stumbled backward, his remaining arrays sparking and malfunctioning as feedback cascaded through his nervous system. "Communications down!" he announced unnecessarily, his voice now carrying only through basic audio rather than their sophisticated mental link. "Something about these projectiles is interfering with our technology in ways that should not be possible." Zethkar was beginning to realize that their situation had become genuinely dangerous. "Fall back to defensive positions. Maintain cover and attempt to locate the sniper. This human is somehow exploiting weaknesses in our equipment." Sarah was already moving, using rope lines she had prepared weeks earlier to rappel down the cliff face toward a secondary position. The aliens would eventually figure out her general location, but their destroyed sensors and severed communications were buying her the mobility she needed to stay ahead of their retaliation. The fourth shot came from a completely different angle, targeting Kithara's demolition equipment as the insectoid tried to set up explosive charges to clear the forest cover. The bullet detonated her primary ordnance pack in a spectacular explosion that sent the demolitions expert tumbling through the undergrowth, her carapace scorched but intact. "She is anticipating our tactical responses," Kithara called out, struggling to her feet while patting out small fires on her equipment harness. "This human understands our capabilities and is specifically targeting our technological advantages." "Impossible," Nixoth replied, though uncertainty crept into his voice. "Human intelligence regarding Union technology is limited to basic observations. She cannot possibly understand our equipment well enough to target specific vulnerabilities." Sarah chambered her fifth round while considering her remaining options. 4 shots had eliminated the squad's heavy weapons, reconnaissance, communications, and demolitions capabilities. The remaining targets would be more challenging because they represented the aliens' adaptive capabilities rather than their technological dependencies. The 5th bullet flew toward Nixoth's position, though Sarah knew the stealth specialist would be difficult to hit directly. Instead, she aimed for the base of a massive tree where her observations suggested he was likely to seek cover. The impact sent wood splinters and fragments of bark flying in all directions, forcing the camouflaged alien to break concealment as debris revealed his previously invisible outline. "Stealth compromised," Nixoth announced, his adaptive camouflage flickering erratically as foreign particles disrupted its functioning. "Somehow this human is tracking movements that our own sensors cannot detect." 3 rounds remained, and 3 aliens still posed potential threats despite their reduced capabilities. Sarah had to make each shot count, because the survivors were finally beginning to adapt to her tactics. They were spreading out, using cover more effectively, and starting to understand that their technological superiority meant nothing against an opponent who understood their weaknesses better than they did. Zethkar raised his remaining functional weapon, a plasma rifle that could probably burn through several trees before its charge depleted. Concentrate fire on all possible sniper positions. Saturate the area with plasma bursts. Chemical weapons cannot compete with focused energy attacks. Sarah smiled as she lined up her sixth shot, knowing that the squad leader had just made his final tactical error. By revealing his position and intentions, he had provided her with the perfect target for demonstrating why ancient rifles had once ruled battlefields across human space. The sixth round caught Zethkar's plasma rifle just as he began charging it for a devastating area bombardment. The bullet struck the weapon's energy conduit with surgical precision, causing a catastrophic feedback loop that sent purple lightning crackling across the squad leader's armor. His weapon exploded in his hands, leaving him defenseless and partially stunned as his suit's systems struggled to compensate for the electrical damage. "My weapon is destroyed," Zethkar announced, his four arms now empty and his confidence finally beginning to crack. "This human is not randomly firing. She is systematically eliminating our combat capabilities with impossible accuracy." Sarah had moved again, this time to a position nearly a kilometer from her original nest. The aliens were finally spreading out properly, but their coordination had collapsed along with their communications equipment. They were operating as individuals rather than a team, exactly what she had hoped to achieve. Velnara slithered through the undergrowth, trying to reach a position where her remaining sensors might detect the sniper's location. Analysis of projectile trajectories suggests multiple firing positions. Either this human possesses superhuman mobility, or we are facing more than one opponent. "Negative," Thexel replied, his damaged communication arrays still sparking occasionally. Bioscans before equipment failure confirmed single human target. This Sarah Chen is somehow achieving rapid position changes that our sensors cannot track effectively. Sarah knew they would eventually figure out her movement patterns, but confusion was working in her favor. The seventh round was already chambered, and she had identified her next target. Velnara's remaining sensors posed the greatest threat to her continued mobility, and eliminating them would ensure the aliens remained effectively blind. The seventh bullet struck the Serpentine alien's backup sensor array, destroying her last means of electronic detection in another shower of sparks and exotic fragments. Velnara hissed in frustration as her sophisticated equipment reduced to smoking scrap, leaving her with only natural senses to track their tormentor. "All sensors down. We are operating blind," she announced, her voice carrying across the valley as their tactical situation deteriorated further. "How is one human with chemical weapons defeating the most advanced military technology in the galaxy?" Kithara was attempting to coordinate the remaining squad members using hand signals and basic audio communication. "We still outnumber her 5-1. Chemical weapons have limited range and require direct line of sight. We can overwhelm her through coordinated assault." "With what?" Bromgath demanded, hefting his ruined fusion cannon like a club. "Our weapons are destroyed, our sensors are offline, and our communications are severed. This human has reduced us to the same technological level she operates at." Sarah smiled as she prepared her eighth and final round. One bullet remained, and 5 aliens still survived, though their combat effectiveness had been reduced to nearly 0. The question now was which target would provide the greatest psychological impact when eliminated, ensuring the survivors would retreat rather than continue the engagement. Nixoth had managed to partially restore his stealth capabilities, but debris still clung to his camouflage systems, making him visible as a vague outline moving between the trees. His infiltration abilities represented the squad's last remaining technological advantage, making him the logical choice for final elimination. The 8th round flew through the alien forest air with the same precision as its 7 predecessors. It struck Nixoth's center mass just as he attempted to vanish completely, the impact sending the stealth specialist tumbling backward as his camouflage systems failed entirely. He crashed into a tree trunk and slumped to the ground, unconscious, but alive. "Stealth operative down!" Kithara chittered, her compound eyes scanning frantically for any sign of the sniper who had just demonstrated perfect knowledge of their positions despite their supposedly superior concealment. 8 shots, 8 critical hits. This is impossible. Sarah emerged from her concealment, the empty Springfield held openly in her hands as she walked calmly toward the demoralized aliens. Her movement was deliberate and confident, showing no fear of the 4 remaining squad members, despite their continued numerical advantage. Weapon appears to be empty, Zethkar observed, his tactical training finally reasserting itself despite his shock. She has exhausted her ammunition. We can still complete our mission through physical combat. Can we? Sarah asked, her voice carrying clearly across the distance between them. Your fusion cannon is scrap metal. Your sensors are dead. Your communications are severed. Your demolitions are expended. Your stealth operative is unconscious. What exactly do you plan to fight me with? The aliens looked at each other with dawning realization. Their energy weapons required functional targeting systems they no longer possessed. Their armor was designed for protection against modern weapons, not hand-to-hand combat. Their tactical coordination depended on electronic systems that no longer existed. Sarah continued her approach, still carrying the empty rifle with casual confidence. This weapon was manufactured in 1943, during a war fought with chemical explosives and metal projectiles. It has no electronic components to malfunction, no energy requirements to deplete, and no sophisticated systems to disable. It is exactly as effective today as it was 250 years ago. Velnara coiled defensively, her serpentine form tensing for potential combat. You speak as though primitive technology represents some form of advantage. How can obsolete weapons compete with advanced engineering? Because advanced engineering creates dependencies, Sarah explained, stopping just outside the effective range of their remaining hand weapons. Your fusion cannon was useless once its targeting computer failed. Your sensors became worthless when their arrays were damaged. Your communications died when their relays were destroyed. Every piece of sophisticated technology you carry has a critical failure point. Thexel's crystalline body pulsed weakly as he considered her words. You deliberately targeted our equipment rather than our persons. Why? You could have killed us all instead of merely disabling our weapons. Because death creates martyrs, but humiliation creates lessons, Sarah replied. When you return to your superiors, you will report that one human with an ancient rifle defeated the galaxy's most elite strike force without killing a single squad member. That message will spread throughout your military hierarchy. Bromgath hefted his ruined fusion cannon experimentally, considering whether its mass might serve as an improvised club. You believe this engagement proves something about human capabilities? One tactical victory does not demonstrate species-wide superiority. Doesn't it? Sarah asked, beginning to reload her rifle with deliberate slowness, each new cartridge sliding smoothly into the magazine. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years with weapons exactly like this one. We understand chemical projectiles, mechanical systems, and basic physics in ways your species has forgotten through dependence on advanced technology. Kithara's mandibles clicked nervously as she watched the reloading process. You cannot seriously suggest that primitive technology represents a genuine threat to Galactic Union forces. Our advantages in firepower, protection, and coordination are overwhelming. Are they? Sarah asked, closing the rifle's bolt with a satisfying click that echoed across the valley. Your firepower requires functional weapons. Your protection depends on operational systems. Your coordination needs working communications. Strip away the technology and what remains? The question hung in the air as the 4 surviving aliens realized they had no good answer. Their entire military doctrine was built around technological superiority. But this human had demonstrated how quickly that advantage could be neutralized by an opponent who understood both the technology and its weaknesses. Zethkar finally lowered his empty hands in acknowledgement of their defeat. What are your terms for our withdrawal? Simple, Sarah replied, shouldering her grandfather's rifle with practiced ease. Return to your ships. Leave this world. Tell your superiors exactly what happened here today. Most importantly, spread the word that humans are not primitive creatures to be easily conquered or dismissed. As the defeated aliens began their retreat, Sarah Chen stood alone in the alien forest, holding a weapon that had been old when humanity first reached for the stars. The Springfield rifle had served her grandfather in Earth's ancient wars, and now it had served her in humanity's expansion across the galaxy. Some technologies never became obsolete because the principles behind them never changed. And sometimes the old ways were still the best ways.